Imagine this. You wake up one morning and hear this sentence on the news. The United States has stopped paying its debt. Not, we can't pay for now. Not, there's been a technical delay, but flat out, we're not paying. At first, you might think, okay, the U.S. debt concerns the U.S. But that's exactly where the real issue begins. Because this isn't like a country missing a credit card payment. This is more like the ground modern civilization is built on suddenly becoming slippery. It's the kind of scenario where banks stop trusting each other, markets freeze, even the meaning of money itself is questioned. And yes, it sounds like a movie. But the truth is, in the financial world, there are things that once they crack, it's very hard to stop the crack from spreading. So let's talk about this calmly without exaggerating it, but without underestimating it either. Because when we say U.S. debt, we're not talking about just a number. We're talking about an invisible skeleton of the modern economic order. A key link in a chain that runs from your credit card interest rate all the way to the price of bread. And here's the interesting part. The richest and most powerful country in history is also one of the most indebted. How does that make sense? Is it a contradiction, or is this how the system is designed? Let's go back to the beginning. Because this story isn't new. America has just gained its independence. The war is over, but there's a mountain of debt. Owed to soldiers, citizens, foreign allies, everyone. In such a situation, most countries usually choose one of two options. Say we can't pay, and default. Devalue the currency, and inflate the debt away. But America chose a third path. And one name shaped this decision more than anyone else. Alexander Hamilton, the financial brain of early America. Hamilton's idea was roughly this. Yes, we have debt. But that doesn't have to be a bad thing. If we pay it regularly, people will trust us. If there's trust, investment comes. If investment comes, the country grows. Instead of hiding debt, he turned it into a trust test. And it worked. America began borrowing, issuing bonds, promising, I'll pay you this amount on this date. And most importantly, it kept its word. People noticed. This country pays its debts, so it must be reliable. This wasn't just a financial move, it was reputation building. And that reputation became one of the foundations of America's rise on the world stage. Today, when we hear the word debt, we instinctively think negatively. You messed up. You lost control. You're going under. But for states, debt can mean something very different. Especially for a growing state, debt, when used correctly, can be an accelerator. Look at America's growth periods. Railroads, industrialization, the New Deal after the Great Depression, World War II, massive post-war infrastructure and technology investments. All of them involve debt. Because these investments don't always pay off immediately, but in the long run, they grow the economy. A growing economy increases tax revenue, which makes debt easier to manage. So here, debt isn't a symbol of collapse, it's a tool for growth. Then we reach the real turning point. Before World War II even ends, 44 countries gather in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. The goal? How do we rebuild the post-war global economy? The world is in ruins. Europe is destroyed. Production has collapsed. Currencies are unstable. Everyone needs one thing, stability. And at that moment, only one country is truly strong, the United States. America has two huge advantages. It holds most of the world's gold reserves. Its industrial production capacity is enormous. So the system is built like this. The global monetary system is tied to the dollar. The dollar is tied to gold. In short, the dollar can be exchanged for gold. So the dollar is safe. Let's use dollars in global trade. And just like that, the dollar becomes the center of the global system. What does that mean? Countries start holding dollars in their reserves because the dollar is safe. And what makes it safe? U.S. stability and the belief that it will keep its promises. This is where U.S. Treasury bonds come in. When countries and institutions look for a safe investment, they buy U.S. Treasuries. At some point, U.S. bonds become the world's savings account. But no system runs smoothly forever. By the late 1960s, the U.S. faces two massive costs. The Vietnam War. Expansive domestic social programs. More dollars circulate, but gold reserves don't grow at the same pace. Countries start asking, we have dollars, but are they really backed by gold? If so, let's take the gold. As countries try to convert dollars into gold, U.S. gold reserves shrink. This exposes the system's weakest point. Tying the dollar to gold limits America's flexibility. And in 1971, something historic happens. President Richard Nixon announces, the dollar is no longer convertible into gold. This is not a minor decision. It's one of the biggest breaks in monetary history. Overnight, money is no longer tied to anything physical. No gold, no silver, no tangible anchor. So what is it tied to? Trust. The dollar's value now rests on this belief. Will the U.S. stand behind the system? Will it pay its debts? Will it maintain order? This is the birth of the modern debt-based system. Not gold, but trust in U.S. Treasuries becomes the foundation. Think about it. If the safest asset is U.S. debt, banks use it as collateral. Pension funds rely on it as the safest investment. Central banks hold it as reserves. Even interest rate floors are based on it. So U.S. debt stops being a domestic issue. It becomes the backbone of global finance. Here's a critical misconception. People think national debt is like a giant bill that will one day be fully paid off. That's not how it works. Government debt usually works like this. Old bonds mature. The government pays them. New bonds are issued. The system rolls forward. Debt doesn't disappear, it's rolled over. And this ritual works as long as people keep buying new bonds. If they do, everything's fine. If they don't, that's when the system freezes. Imagine the U.S. misses even one payment. Even a short delay sends this message. The risk-free asset is no longer risk-free. And because U.S. Treasuries are considered risk-free, any doubt triggers a domino effect. Banks lend to each other using collateral, and the king of collateral is U.S. Treasuries. If that collateral is questioned, banks say, I don't trust you. No trust means credit stops. Liquidity dries up. Markets freeze. That's why even a one-day delay can matter. Because the issue isn't money, it's continuity of trust. This isn't hypothetical. In 1979, a technical issue delayed some U.S. Treasury payments. Interest rates rose, and confidence was shaken. In 2011, the debt ceiling crisis led to the first-ever downgrade of U.S. credit rating, and that alone caused major market turmoil. The lesson: crises are often psychological before they are mathematical. Here's the paradox. Some countries sell oil. Some sell technology. Some sell cheap labor. What does America sell? In a way, promises. A bond is a promise. I'll pay you in the future. And the world buys that promise because it has become the safest thing around. That's why even paying off U.S. debt completely could cause problems. Because the world needs those safe assets. Debt isn't just a burden anymore, it's a product. Fast forward to today. By 2025, U.S. debt exceeds $38 trillion. Numbers like that are hard to grasp, so think of it this way. As debt grows, interest payments grow. As interest payments grow, budget flexibility shrinks. At some point, the government borrows just to pay interest. That doesn't mean collapse tomorrow, but it raises sustainability questions. Add political conflict. The debt ceiling becomes a recurring crisis. Markets don't ask, is there money? They ask, will politics get in the way? The risk isn't capacity, it's political will. Trust isn't just about having money. It's about systems functioning smoothly. Some countries reduce treasury holdings. Some move toward gold. Some explore dollar alternatives. This doesn't mean the dollar is finished. It means the world is managing risk. No one attacks the dollar head-on. They just slowly diversify. And empires often fade like this, not suddenly, but quietly. Big crises often start as small glitches. A delayed payment. A technical issue. A bureaucratic announcement. But everyone senses something changed. Because once the impossible becomes possible, the mind never forgets. Trust can't be restored like a saved file. Let's be clear, the language is dramatic. 48-hour implosion makes for strong storytelling. Reality would be more like this. Shock in bond markets. Stress in repo markets. Declining interbank trust. Sharp dollar volatility. Global equity sell-offs. Fast, yes. Total collapse? Unlikely. More accurate. It would be the biggest stress test modern finance has ever faced. And it would affect everyone. The strongest idea in this story is simple. The world runs on trust, not money. Money itself is an agreement. So are bonds. When trust weakens, risk premiums rise. Interest rates increase. Growth slows. Money still exists, but it becomes more expensive. Rome debased its currency and lost trust. Britain lost sterling dominance and global influence. America's story doesn't have to end the same way. But history tells us this. No system is permanent. Every system requires maintenance. Because yes, U.S. debt isn't just America's problem. It's one of the pillars of global finance. And that pillar stands on one thing: trust. If trust holds, the system works. If it cracks, even the largest economy can become a source of instability. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.